Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Baumgardner. This is my final reflection presentation for criminology here at Averett University. Um, I do have some notes laid out just to kind of keep me focused and on track. I am going to answer the questions in order that just kind of how it worked out best for me. So I'll read the question off before I give my explanation, just so you can kind of follow along and know exactly what's happening. First of all, Mr. Wilt, I appreciate you. That this class has been very challenging, and I've definitely took a lot of good things away from it, and it's pushed me to my limits some weeks. So the first thing that we'll cover is wanted us to identify two perceptions, opinions, beliefs, or values about a crime or criminality that you held but have changed as a result of taking this course. You know, I sat and thought about it for a while. You know, there's a lot of things that I have taken away from this class, and that I definitely have a very different mindset. Definitely more open minded. But my ideas and my beliefs began to change. Probably during Unit Two is when I become more open minded, and things started to change for me. Um, the first thing is just criminals in general. I am a police officer, so before I started in law enforcement, and even throughout my law enforcement career, I kind of believe that criminals were just bad people. It didn't really matter where they came from or who they were associated with. They were just bad people in general, and they really wanted to commit crime. So the ideal of that there was a link between biology and criminal behaviors was something I was very hesitant about, and honestly, I didn't really believe it at first before I read into it. But what really changed my mind was the modern biological theories. Here recently, and I say recently, probably in the past year and a half, um, I started becoming pretty unhealthy. So I kind of changed my diet and my intake of what I was taking in, supplements and things like that, and it's really improved my overall health and living. So that was something that was pretty interesting to me, and kind of got my mind thinking. So the modern biological theories is that believes that violent behavior and criminal tendencies um, can be related to someone's diet, vitamin deficiencies, and even their genetics. So that was something that was big for me. Looking into the research that people have done, showing that there's a link between that. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, for example, homeless people. A lot of times, homeless people are probably not eating vegetables, getting the correct nutrients and everything they need to fuel their body. And a lot of times, not all, but most homeless people do end up committing crimes. So, that was something that I never thought about, and had definitely changed my mindset on. The second belief was something that I felt very strong about, and honestly, when I seen it, it's kind of like one of those debates with abortion. Either you support it or you don't support it. There's kind of no in between. So going into criminology, I was definitely a complete supporter of the death penalty, no matter what. I felt that if someone committed a crime such as murder, that immediately after they were found guilty, the death penalty should come quickly after that, and they shouldn't sit on death row for years, and have different trials, and so on and so forth.
But the one thing that opened my eyes was the Death Penalty Information Center. I spent hours on this site just looking at the statistics and the facts on that website. The one thing that really stuck out to me was the statistics in Texas. 13 people have been on death row, so meaning that they've been in prison, already been found guilty, just awaiting to be executed, and they've ended up being found innocent. So, that was 13 people that could have potentially lost their life for what? For no reason. They didn't commit the crime. So that really kind of set me back and made me look at the big picture. What if that was me? What if that was one of my family members? Would I support it the way I did before this class? So that was something that really has changed my mind, and I feel like now, with the death penalty, there's definitely changes that need to be made. Whatever legislation put in act to that, there needs to be cold hard evidence. We live in a world full of technology where, as law enforcement, we kind of have this saying, conduct your business as if you were always being recorded. So I feel like with the death penalty, there needs to be cold hard evidence of this person committing this crime, whether it be video or DNA evidence, whatever it may be. So the second question is explain how your perception of a particular pattern or type of crime has changed. And there's some other questions and under that I will answer throughout my response here. So I decided to go with a particular crime, and that was spousal rape. This was something that, even though I'm in law enforcement, that I honestly had never really heard that before. That saying, spousal rape. This was something completely new, and so before I read into it, I thought to myself, is this even possible? Can someone be raped that's married? I felt like this was before reading into it, that this was a very feminist perspective, I guess you could say. I felt like it was just a feminist who had come up with this idea. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, no means no, whether you're married or not. So I decided to give this topic a chance, and I'm glad I did, because like I said, it really did change the way I think. So this all came about roughly in the 1970s, and finally in 1976 is where a man could be convicted of raping his wife. So that was a huge step. Now it's illegal in all 50 states, and you could be prosecuted for that in all 50 states. Diana Russell was the first person to kind of put boots to ground and research this topic. And it was honestly groundbreaking. She found that a lot of these guys before this time period in 1970, were raping their wives and getting by with it. They couldn't be convicted of it. She found in her study there's 4 different types of men when it comes to spousal rape. Number one, there is the guy who prefers rape over consensual sex. Second one, the guy who enjoys both rape and consensual sex, so he enjoys both types. The third is he prefers consensual sex, but if his wife says no, he is willing to rape. And then the fourth type is the guy who thinks about rape but doesn't necessarily act upon it. So that being said, I guess I believe the biggest misconception that came from that was just being closed-minded, to not really thinking of the woman's side of it. If she says no,
that means no. So I was being very, very close-minded about it, kind of an old school way. Like I said, I grew up in a household was very, very southern, very traditional. The women served the men. I never seen my grandfather or my father fix their own plate of food. So to be honest with you, it was, the men were kind of superior. They were over the women, and it was kind of whatever the man says goes. So I think that's where my misconceptions came from, and I'm very glad that I got to see Diana Russell's research on it, because, like I said, it really has changed my mind and my whole beliefs on it. All right. Next question was, explain how your perception of who commits crimes has changed. Again, before going into this class, just in law enforcement in general, I kind of had this perception of what a criminal looks like. First, I'll start off with the sex. It's more than likely, in my opinion, before this class, it was a man to commit a crime. For example, if I responded to a domestic type situation, the man is saying one thing, the woman's saying something different, typically I would be more apt to believe the woman, that the man was the primary aggressor. And that's just not the case, because, there is times that the woman will assault the man. So I think that was a big one for me, is that I predominantly imagined that just males would commit crimes. And the second thing was probably social status or their appearance. A lot of times I feel like, or I thought that, criminals were just lower class, or they had a certain look to them, kind of scruffy beard, their clothes were dirty, or whatever, just a lower class citizen. Where my mind began to change on that was, there was a example in the book. In 2010, the daughter of a former New York mayor, she stole $100 worth of makeup, and that's something that maybe in New York, it may have been on the news. It ran one night, two nights, whatever. It was done, but that's not something that we heard about here in Virginia. So that's kind of where my mindset started to change. Is, well, this young little girl who probably dressed nice, who dresses nice, comes from money. That's not what I would consider your typical criminal. So as I went on throughout the book, came across white collar crimes. Again, this is not something that in local law enforcement, that I really deal with. I don't deal with people, in companies or whatever, embezzling or whatever it may be. That's just not something I deal with. So that really changed my mind to when I looked into white collar crime, of the type of people that are committing these crimes. Um, you know, a lot of times in the media or the news or whatever, you don't typically see things like that, and it got me to thinking, why do we not see that? So I read some research from Edwin Sutherland, who kind of gives the definition of white collar crime and describes the type of people who commit these crimes. And it's not personally what I thought your typical criminal would look like. So in his research, he talks about that a lot of times the people who are involved in white collar crimes are, people who are respected, are very high class, and are well known in the community. And a lot of times these people, when it comes down to the crime, a lot of times, Edwin Sutherland found that, they're less likely to be investigated, arrested, or prosecuted. So, a lot of times you don't even hear about these white collar crimes, So that really, turned me, upside down of what I typically think a criminal looks like, to, a criminal could be anybody. It doesn't. They don't have a certain look, or a certain definition of who they are. So, again, I think a lot of it, my misconceptions come from just the media in general, and what you see on TV, and kind of who I've dealt with in the past. All right, on to the next. So the next thing is explain how a structural interactionist or critical theoretical perspective influence the change in your perception. So I feel like out of all three of those, that the structural perspective was kind of the one that really I gravitated more towards, and really kind of changed the way I thought. Um, there's a relationship between social structure and criminal behavior. If you're around crime and you're never taught, right from wrong, you're more likely to be part of that crime. Economic conditions also play a major role in that. I was lucky to be raised in a family where the economic conditions didn't. I guess it played a factor on the better part that I never had to see a lot of crime. I never had to deal with a lot of crime, and like I said, I was taught right from wrong right off the bat. So I knew crime was wrong, and I knew not to commit it. So out of those three perspectives, even though this was not a question here, I feel like the critical theoretical perspective was kind of the one that it didn't really change my mind either way. I guess maybe because I didn't really see eye to eye with it, or I didn't agree with it. Kind of it's based on changing society as a whole, and I just I don't really see that possible, or see that wasn't something that, like I said, changed my mindset either way. Next is describe the theoretical perspective. Theoretical perspective is based, kind of off of assumptions, or reality that informs questions that we ask. It's kind of often looked at as, or described as, looking through a lens, and it kind of can distort or focus what we see in reality, or what we see in the world. It also helps organize our ideas to make our ideas clear to others. So it's funny, even though it is perspective, it did teach me how to see things in a different perspective, kind of stepping back and looking through that lens to make things clear to me. It helps you in the social world to possibly predict what will happen with crime in the future, which is very very good for me, someone who's in law enforcement, to possibly predict a pattern, or kind of see clearly what's going on. So last question was explain how your changed perception and new knowledge will influence your personal and or professional life. So again, I'll have to say that this class was extremely challenging. Not only academically, but the fact that I was pretty closed-minded to having to be more open-minded to get through this class, and kind of get on the same page of what I was reading, and kind of all these perspectives and theories. So it really taught me how to think outside of the box, which overall helps me in my personal life, because again, I'm very very closed-minded when it comes to things, not open to try new things and stuff, and honestly, to look at the world that I live in just a completely different light. As far as my professional career, criminology goes hand in hand with law enforcement. So It helps me when dealing with criminals in general. Just hopefully putting me a step ahead of them and kind of predict of what crimes or what's going to happen in the future, or see patterns that they're displaying. So overall, again, Mr. Wilt, thank you for this class. Like I said, it has challenged me from week to week. I've definitely had some ups and downs, and but overall, I was excited for the class, and I'm still excited for what I learned. So thank you, and have a good day.